Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Tech and Tell podcast. I am your host, Jacinta Fabi, also a product designer. And yeah, today we are in for another topic. And we're going to be talking about something that doesn't really get talked about enough, but almost every product designer has experienced it at some point in their career. And that's the topic of imposter syndrome. Now, there's that feeling where you basically question, your skills, you second guess your decisions, or you even feel like you don't quite belong, right? Even when you're actually doing the work or putting in the effort. And the interesting thing is that this doesn't just affect, beginners. It doesn't just affect people starting out in their career. It basically shows up at different stages, right? And yeah, I think a lot of designers silently deal with this. You're learning, you're growing, but at the same time, there's this voice in your head, asking, am I actually, good enough for this? And so in this episode, yeah, we'll be talking about how to recognize imposter syndrome, how to understand it, and also how to navigate it in a healthy way. Yeah, I'm really glad to have someone join me for this conversation, another product designer who understands the realities of this journey. Yeah, welcome, Cindy. I'm really happy to have you here on today's episode.
Thank you so much, Jess, for having me.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so Cindy, let's start with introductions, right? Can you walk us through briefly about your journey and your journey into product design, your background, and yeah, any
Mm.
relevant information you'd like to share with us?
Okay. My journey into product design is not like a straightforward one. I think pretty much everyone has this straightforward, non-linear journey.
Mhm.
My bachelor's degree was in biochemistry.
Oh wow.
Then, yeah, after NYC, I actually wanted to be a doctor. That's the funny thing.
Okay.
I had a bachelor's degree from biochemistry at OAU.
Mm-hmm.
And after uni, I joined HNG because I got a scholarship to have like an internship, right? Few
Mm-hmm.
internship to learn web development.
Okay.
So I actually started as a front end developer. So I joined HNG with that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give like a background story, just context, we're
Yeah.
growing up a creative person. You find me designing cards, then I'll be using PowerPoint to just design stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so when I discovered that there's a career path called design,
Yeah.
it just makes sense to me. And then designers will give us design. I'm like, "Ah, what is this one? I can do better than this, even as a front end developer."
Yeah.
I started to I started to read more about design, and then after that cycle, I
Mm-hmm.
joined the next team as a UI UX designer,
Mm-hmm.
and then I finished and I got my first role just immediately using my HNG portfolio.
Wow.
After the internship, and from then, started working in different industries. So designer on the team, then changed companies, got into a more, lead focused position or role where I was lead product designer. So, yeah, and so far for the past almost 5+ years now, I've been, in the product design industry and enjoying it.
Oh, that's great. That's really nice and good to hear. So do you like sometimes shuffle like because you mentioned you have like front end skills or you were once a front end developer before you switched to design. So do you sometimes shuffle or you're like a full-time designer now?
I am now a full-time product designer because
Okay.
I was actually struggling as a front-end developer. It was so hard. And back then I was also like caring for a newborn-ish. My child was
Oh,
like in the I'm
uh,
like, I can't with this. It was literally like me going out of, comfort. Because if you
yeah.
look at it, front-end development has to do with a lot of you need to, understand logic a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You need to or you need to. So at that point, for me personally, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, with the kind of system I had around me. You
Yeah.
know, I nah, I think I'll just go to something I'm naturally more inclined into,
Mm-hmm.
which was product design, the design flair, then also the fact that I love like thinking, I love to like propose solutions. So it just gelled for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good to hear. And yeah. So now bringing it back to the topic, of this episode, which is imposter syndrome, did you at any point in your journey or during your journey to becoming a product designer, did you at any point feel like an imposter, or maybe let's start from, from the basics. Like what do you think imposter syndrome mean, right? Especially in the context or in the world of like product design, and also during your journey or during the course of your career, have you ever felt like an imposter?
Mm, definitely. Definitely. And if I'm to look at the definition of what imposter syndrome means,
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of like see imposter syndrome as, feeling like a fraud, right?
Mm-hmm.
Despite our competence and,
Yeah.
all the things that we have achieved. But I think that even that definition is kind of like not complete in a sense because,
Okay.
it is not just only like feeling like a fraud, but it is kind of like the fear of someone, finding out,
Yeah.
finding out like that moment where somebody in the room, maybe you're in the
Mm-hmm.
room, somebody will just point at you and say, "You, how did you get here? Who gave you this space? Who gave you right into this space?" Right? So just like someone finding out or finding that you are a fraud,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that fear that sums up what imposter syndrome is all about. And in product design, it shows up in so many ways, to be honest, right? Times when you are presenting your designs
Mm-hmm.
right before a team or before stakeholders. Let me not even say like CCO, the ones that are calling the shots,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And you and you're just scared, like, will I mess up?
Mm-hmm.
Or will they feel this person? How do we this person even schedule this person for this, or how did you give this person this role, right? And sometimes it's even like when you get promoted, so you get promoted, and then instead of you feeling like you actually end that promotion,
Yeah.
you're spending like the next few months thinking about, okay, I'm waiting for them to find out that I'm not really that of a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're kind of like managing, you know, the internal conflict that you're having,
Mm.
and you're also doing your own product design operational work,
Mm.
right? So those
Yeah.
are the I would say product design shows off. Sorry, imposter syndrome shows off in the
Mm-hmm.
world of product design.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so like how in your own experience, how would you say you have been able to combat that or overcome it? Yeah.
Mm, to be honest, I have not fully overcome it. I have not
Okay.
fully overcome,
Mm.
and I think the word overcoming makes
Mm.
it because it kind of like set up, it kind of like it's like a ground for disappointment, right? Because
Mm.
it's like the finish line, like, oh,
Yeah.
you've overcome drum,
Yeah.
right? You have not fully overcome it, right? What
Okay.
I've learned to do is to work alongside it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Rather than deceiving myself, right?
Yeah.
And the shifts that happened for me in my own journey is, I was working at my company then, and then I was given the sole ownership of designing a government portal, right,
Okay.
for two key states in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only person, the only designer, even though that there was a team of designers, but I was the one that was given that, ownership of that project. And
Okay.
so I had to design the portal for those two state governments.
Okay.
And you understand, I don't know, when you're working on, projects as large as that with that kind of impact,
Mm-hmm.
the stakes are very, very high,
Of course.
and the scopes are bigger than you actually think,
Yeah.
but going. And the interesting thing about this is other people can see the stuff that you're made of because you as a person, you're kind of like overcritical and over
Mhm.
judgmental about your abilities and your abilities,
Yeah.
right? But other people seeing like this person is so good, this person is so valuable, this person is an
Mhm.
asset, but
Yeah.
you're not seeing,
You're not seeing
right?
it. Yeah.
So yeah, so for that kind of project, that magnitude of project to be awarded to me to work on, it
Mm-hmm.
was a can't say, girl, you're actually like a big deal here,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that was the shift that happened for me,
Mm.
and that platform is even still in use today,
Oh, wow.
and also
Um,
the reason and even me designing that project actually won the contract because I was designing at a
mm-hmm.
very short, timeline or deadline,
Mm-hmm.
in order to win the contract, and we eventually won the contract because of that. So
Oh,
yeah, that was like one defining,
yeah.
moment for me, help me to kind of like, overcome it in a way, not overcome it, but like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
give me a pat on the back. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I also I think with the fact that they saw you as fit, to award that kind of project to you, I think that also
yeah,
speaks something, about your capabilities and your ability to be able to take on the project, right? But then after you saw like the impact post launch and everything, how did that make you feel? Did that somehow like help in terms of how you felt initially? Like, did it boost your confidence more, or what difference did that make?
it did boost my confidence. In
Okay.
fact, it did boost my confidence because even apart from the fact that it got launched, apart
Mm-hmm.
from the fact that the design got the contract,
Mm-hmm.
it was also covered in newspapers.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's only like me work because I'm not going to take like all the credit, right? It's like a
Mm-hmm.
team effort,
Yeah.
right? But still, I'm the designer here, so
Yeah.
yeah, so it really helps even like going forward. And I feel like I'm feeling like a fraud in a
Mm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reminding myself that Cindy, it's you that did this now.
Yeah.
So like can actually do it,
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I felt
That
very myself, yeah.
That's really, really, really interesting to know. But also, like, still talking about imposter syndrome, and then you've mentioned like all of these situations where you've, at some point felt like an imposter and how you are trying to navigate them. Okay, maybe let's not use the word overcome. Let's say navigate, right? Um, also with the topic of like the new trends, around the industry now, also with AI and different things, different products coming up like daily. Do you think that also sort of like makes things worse? Because here I am trying to deal with, the core in terms of what I do, like in terms of my network or my place of work. And then there's also this larger conversation about, AI and also different trends. So do you think that makes it worse, or do you think so what's your thinking around that?
I'm really glad we're talking about this because this is something that's been in my mind
Okay.
for quite for
Mm-hmm.
a while.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is the newest trigger,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like nobody is really talking about it. So I'm really glad I'm talking about it here.
Okay.
So there are different kinds of imposter syndrome that can come from this whole AI thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? The first one is the now there is the um product designer who builds.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's the product designer building with Lovable.
Mm-hmm.
There is
Yeah.
now native AI. I just saw that recently. Okay,
Yeah.
what's in you know so designers being encouraged. Let me use that
Mm-hmm.
word, encouraged. Learn to use AI tools to build, right,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just designing. And the second one is the most common one where a lot of designers feel like AI is going to take the jobs, take
Yeah.
the design job,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the second one where it's like companies feel like, okay, AI can do this.
Mm-hmm.
right? If
Yeah.
tool can generate this kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right, then what then makes you valuable, as a person or as a product designer? What then do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
And I would like to say something very important. AI you know, can, design interfaces. You can give it context, you can give it data,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it even like just thinks things that you didn't even write and just comes up with something that just frustrates you at the end, right? That is
Yeah.
the downside to using AI,
Yeah.
to design your product or to design, anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And both you as a product designer, and so let me give a very real example.
Okay.
Um, I was to I was to design I was to actually come up with a solution to help schools find defaulters, school fees defaulters, so defaulters,
Okay.
yeah, school fees defaulters, right? And I had to go to schools to seek understanding, get to understand what, the pain points were,
Yeah.
understand what was going on, right,
Mm-hmm.
about the old team, and everything about that.
Okay.
And AI wouldn't do that. AI cannot,
No,
go
of
to your
course not. Yeah.
yeah, go to your users and ask them questions.
Mm-hmm.
AI cannot read languages. AI cannot, read the behaviors or see the hesitations
True.
of your users
True.
speaking to them, right? So the value that you bring as a product designer is not just aesthetics and making things pretty, but it is
Mm-hmm.
the thinking, right?
Yeah.
That is the value and the asset that you bring, being
Mm-hmm.
able to think,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you as a designer should not just depend on, just being a designer, a UI designer, right? Like in the last 5 years, where it's all about just coming up with designs, but rather, product thinking, product strategy,
Mm-hmm.
you can connect the dots, how you can connect, the design solutions to business, um, what's it called now, to business goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is the skill that you bring as a product designer. So you
Yeah.
have a high edge. You can use AI to make you, to help you work faster,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still more valuable than AI in the end.
Yeah.
Then also, yeah, starting a new role also makes it worse, right? Because when you start a new role, there is this probationary period. You
Yeah.
have 90 days, kind of like prove yourself,
Yeah.
right? So even though you passed all these stages of interview, when you get
Mm-hmm.
in there, there's now a whole level of, okay, am I going to be kicked out after 90 days, right? That kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of like continuously trying to prove yourself
Mm-hmm.
while also trying to learn the environment or
Yeah.
understand even what the product is about,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the trick I would say, or yeah, the trick I would say is to separate these two things, right? You don't have to prove yourself while
Mm-hmm.
also still learn. You can separate the both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you got into that role, because you
Yeah.
have the skill set,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not that you don't have it. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to first of all understand that. Then the second one is, you trying to learn and understand the environment. Yeah, that can also take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just say that just as a product designer, just don't be very comfortable where you are. Always still seek to learn and to grow.
Hmm. Yeah. I think thank you very much for that, Cindy, because I myself, I wouldn't lie, I also have like those doubts, like, oh, this AI, like I think just yesterday I was on LinkedIn and then I saw where I think someone made a post about Google Stitch now that you can now, sketch like a design, upload, and then you can like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this again? Like, so
Mm,
does this ever end? And hearing that, you as a fellow designer also like sort of like reaffirms the fact that AI can't, do the emotional part of it, doesn't have emotional intelligence,
yeah.
to go out there, get the data, do the research. you can only work
Mm-hmm.
us as we can only work with it as a collaborator, So yeah, I think also people hearing this would have some form of relief that okay, just chill, but don't chill. And
Mm-hmm.
try to be better, not just on the UI aspect, but also try to hone your UX skills, with things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Yeah. So I also want to like just reference back to when you mentioned when you were given the responsibility to work on the government project, that was like a huge project you worked on, and then at that point you were having this feelings of like imposter syndrome. Would you be able to do this
Mm-hmm.
and all? And but
Yeah.
at that point when you had those feelings, how, because I'm sure you must have gotten like some form of feedback or criticism, maybe from
Yeah.
stakeholders. Yeah. So how were you
Yeah.
able to handle that, even with the fact that you were
Mm.
already feeling the way that you
Yeah.
were feeling as an imposter? So how were you able to navigate that?
Okay. So, hmm. Okay, so the truth is, the way I like to see feedback, is feedback is is it's easy for me to say unless you're in that kind of situation,
Yeah.
then you have to now start practicalizing these things that you hear theoretically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had to rewire how I saw feedback and
Mm-hmm.
also the class or the category of people giving the feedback. Those two things
Mm-hmm.
I also like to take into consideration. Um, and feedback can come in different ways, can come in different shapes and different forms. But I also try to detach myself. What I do is I try to detach myself,
Okay.
right? Because when you put like your old self, when you're getting feedback, sometimes you can want to respond in a
Mm-hmm.
very defensive manner. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to just detach myself and kind of like detach my feelings and kind of deflect
Mm-hmm.
away. Just get the feedback, but not
Okay.
allow it to get into me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if it gets into me, that defense, as a product
Yeah.
designer, you're passionate about the work that you did. So if
Yeah.
someone is giving feedback that, you want to always defend your work. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to kind of reflect,
Mm-hmm.
just get the feedback. And
Yeah.
people won't give feedbacks in the way that you like it. People don't
Yeah.
understand how you like to be spoken to. So
True.
other people can give feedback in a more constructive way. Other people might
Mhm.
just give it to you,
Yeah.
just very straight.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you are not, putting emotions when you're getting feedback, and that's something I always do. So I kind of like deflect myself, and
Okay.
sometimes when I'm getting feedback, I just note down the things that is being said. I just,
Okay.
write it down. And sometimes I give myself permission not to respond. You don't have to respond at that time. You
Mm-hmm.
can always tell the person that, okay, let me think about this, right? And you can always go back and then calm down,
Mm-hmm.
understand that the person is trying to pass across, and then you can go back to seeing, okay, this is what I understood by what you said. This is
Yeah.
my process. This is how I want to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Does this align with our goals and stuff like that? So,
Mm-hmm.
so definitely, yes, I got feedback from that project, and I understood the magnitude of the project also because it is not something that can flop. It should not
Yeah.
flop. Right. So that weight alone with the imposter syndrome I was feeling. But at that point, what even helped me was, I actually mentioned before, like what I mentioned before, I was given the project, it was given to me, so it means that I earned it,
Mm-hmm.
they saw that,
True.
asset. So that was like, okay, I might need to prove myself, but I don't think I need to prove myself so much because I mean they already see that. I don't need to work extra hard. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was giving back, I received it as not just like an attack, right? And this is something that we also need to learn not to get like receive feedback as an attack on your person. It's
Mm-hmm.
relating to the work, not you as
Yeah.
a person.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we get like, oh, maybe I'm not a good designer, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm a bad designer,
Mm-hmm.
but it is not a reflection of you as a person or the kind of work that you are able to produce, but just because of what is at stake,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That this is something that should not be flopped or cannot be flopped, but this is how we should approach it. So let us see how we can go. Because really, everyone is all about the success of that project,
Yes.
you know. That
Yeah.
is what everybody is all about, right? So
Yes.
different ways that you can give the feedback, they will give it, right? So I think we should just focus on the fact that it is about the project, not about you or your skill
Mhm.
set.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I've been able to. That's how I was actually able to, receive feedback at that time.
Okay, that's good. And do you think that there are like any like daily habits or routines that can, help like designers to build their confidence, in time when they feel like, an imposter? Do you think there are like daily routines or yeah, that can basically help them in that aspect?
Yeah, I think this one is even something that we hear a lot, which is
Okay.
keeping a record of your evidences, keeping a record of your wins. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's something that is very common. We all talk about it, and it's the truth. Keeping a record of your wins, your big
Mm-hmm.
wins, your small wins, and it's not like the traditional journaling, but I just keeping like a document, a a livable document that you always have to update from
Mm-hmm.
time to time whenever you see something substantial, whether
Yeah.
big or small, that you can always update in the document, right? So whenever you get like a feedback from a user that just give you maybe like a 5 star, maybe
Mm-hmm.
you did like a maybe you did like a user interview with a user and there was like positive responses, you just like write that down. If you're maybe someone in the sorry the C-suite,
Mm-hmm.
gives a feedback and commends you on your work or commends you on your leadership skills or how you're
Yeah.
able to really produce the project or produce the design under a short period of time. Write that down. Right, write the context as well, not just write, but write the context, write the date, write as much detail
Yeah.
as you want about it, because when you just write like a very short line, you may not really remember the context. But when you write like the context of what happened, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I was given this and I finished it in 1 week, and I counted this, and then my C-suite or my head of product and my head of design said this about my work, you
Yeah.
know, getting it in that way, you can always go back to that. Because the truth is, imposter syndrome is just a memory problem,
Mm.
right? It selectively remembers your failures and it forgets your wins,
Mm.
right? So having that document, of all your wins, is like a week, it's like yeah, like an open book for you to just go back to,
Yeah.
and to read things that you have achieved, the things that you've done, because
Yeah.
those records look back against the selective memory that you have,
Mm-hmm.
right? So another thing that you can do is also to design something for yourself regularly. And this is something I always do for my child's birthday. I take it like a project. I do like, even though I'm not doing a party, but I just flex, because sometimes when you're working in an organization, there is
Mm-hmm.
a limit to how you can flex your creative muscle,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to follow design systems. You might not be able to do some creative things that you have to do. So have some personal projects, or some personal projects here that you can you know, do for yourself regularly. Something that doesn't have to do with a brief or
Yeah.
stakeholder approval or anything like that, right? Just you solving a problem, those things, kind of like help you and build your confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh,
Yeah. Okay, just trying to check on our time now. I think we have like I think less than 9 minutes left. But
mm,
yeah, but I just don't want the call to end unless I ask this. I think it's a very controversial question. Like if there is any aspect, right? If there is any aspect of imposter syndrome that serves people, like how you tend to feel like an imposter and you're like you just know you can't slack, you just know you can't relax because you have to prove a point, right? So do you think it's it's helpful in a way, like in another way, if you look at it? What are your thoughts on that?
take that question again.
Sorry.
Can you take the question again?
Oh, okay, okay. So the question is if there is a part of imposter syndrome that actually serves people, like if there's a version of it that is actually helpful in terms of, okay, how you feel like an imposter, for example, at a new job, and you know that, okay,
Okay.
you can't be relaxed here because you need to prove a point. because of that
Mhm.
imposter syndrome and because you're doubting yourself. So you know you have
Yeah,
to do like times 10 of what you normally do in your comfort zone, right? Yes. So
yeah,
that's the question. Do you think it's good in a way that people feel that in kind of imposter syndrome?
yeah, yes. I actually feel like imposter syndrome serves in a way.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to talk really fast so that we don't go over our time. But I was in a
No worries.
conference
Mm-hmm.
recently. Somebody was sharing about imposter syndrome, and she was
Mm-hmm.
saying that imposter syndrome led her to read more, and also being a woman in male dominated environment like tech. So she had to prove herself more. So she even knew more, much more than her male counterpart. So she was the CTO
Mm-hmm.
in that company, and then she was telling our CEO that she wanted to leave because she felt like she was failing. And
Mm-hmm.
then our CEO said, no, that no, you are not failing because even the two CTOs before you were males, and you are even doing way better than them in 6 months that you joined
Mm-hmm.
than the two of them combined in the 1 year, 2 year period that you joined.
Yeah.
So yeah, imposter syndrome actually makes you want to learn, make you
Mm-hmm.
want to grow, make you want to do more
Mm-hmm.
and not be average. Yeah, it
Yeah.
serves you. Yeah. So imposter syndrome would make you want to learn more. It will keep you curious. It will
Mm.
make you not to, be left behind in a way. So now that we're talking about I know that I already started taking, I joined a meeting recently on how to use Lovable, to build my personal project
Yeah.
during the women when there were free credits on Lovable. I built something.
Yeah.
So, that is you not there's an imposter syndrome there, but it is you not staying there and feeling, incapacitated, but you
Yeah.
going ahead more to learn more. What
Yeah.
can I learn? Who can I do that can teach me this thing, right?
True.
So imposter syndrome serves people, right? So yeah. So if that feeling makes you want to research more thoroughly, like research more, be better. Yes, yeah, it is working for you definitely. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think having conversations like this also it's also good so that we can create that kind of awareness as well because if you don't recognize that it's imposter syndrome, you would know how to manage it and how to work with it, right? When it hits you in that kind of
mm,
in that kind of situation.
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure during when you had like your project or whenever it comes to you, because you already recognize it, you already know that no, this is imposter syndrome, and this is how I'm going to navigate or work around it. Yeah,
yeah.
so okay, so if you could like, give one piece of advice to like designers that constantly feel like they're not enough, like and have
Mm.
this imposter syndrome, and maybe with this conversation, hopefully they're already able to recognize it. But what would that advice be that you would want to give them when they because they constantly feel like they're not enough?
Yeah. So I would say that you should stop waiting till you're ready or till you're
Okay.
100% ready,
Okay.
right? Because you will never be 100% ready. You will
Mm-hmm.
never be perfectly ready. There
Mm-hmm.
is no timing for you to feel that 100% confidence that you are looking for,
Mm-hmm.
right? So ready is not a feeling that arrives before the work. It is something that gets built
Mm-hmm.
through the work. While you are doing the work, you are also building that muscle. So imposter syndrome is like it's a feeling,
Yeah.
right? Same way with happiness, same way with anger. It is a
Mm-hmm.
feeling. It is not like, oh, this is who you are as a person. So it's a feeling that you can either use to your own advantage or
Mm-hmm.
discard or use to your own good, right?
Yeah.
So every designer that we even admire today, including Jess, including myself,
Yeah.
right, who seems confident or who seems like they've done so much, they
Mm-hmm.
also have that feeling, right? They
Mm-hmm.
also have that feeling of imposter syndrome, right? Where they
Yeah.
feel like they are not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's not what we did is not just to just stay in that feeling, but to work on that emotion,
Yeah.
grow alongside it, not just waiting for us to feel perfectly okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your work is waiting for the confidence to catch up. Your
Yeah.
confidence is waiting for work to prove it right,
Yeah.
right? So I want you to just do the work, show up anyway, right? If you need to submit an application, if you need to speak to anybody, just do it, right?
Yeah.
Because the only way out of that feeling, right, is to
Mhm.
build a record that makes sure that your story is, harder and harder to believe, right?
Yeah.
So the years, 5 years, 4 years, 6 years that even myself and Jess has been in this industry, we've always had imposter syndrome, but
Sure.
look at how far
Yeah.
so it is not the story is always sweet. Say that you
Yeah.
had imposter syndrome and then look and say that you're working in Meta or something.
Mm-hmm.
It is inspiring and encouraging than, oh, I had imposter syndrome and I went to bed and then I
Yeah.
said it was the end for me. Right. So that's what I would say.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you for taking us through
Okay.
your experience. This has been such, an honest conversation. And yeah, I
Mm,
think one key thing to take away from, from this topic or from being from imposter syndrome is that it doesn't mean that, you are not good enough, right? It often just means that you are basically growing, you're stretching yourself beyond its limits, and you're also, basically stepping into new spaces, not necessarily your comfort zone. So you're stepping out of your comfort zone, right? And I feel like, yeah, at the end of the day, the goal isn't to never even feel it. It is more about the control, how you take the decisions,
mm.
or if you then decide to hold back, right? So thank you very much,
Yes,
Cindy. Thank you for sharing your
you're
thoughts.
welcome.
Thank you for sharing your experience. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Thank you
Uh,
so much for having me.
all right. And yeah, so guys, if this really resonated with you, please feel free to share it with somebody who might need it. You never know. Yeah, until then, see you on the next episode and take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.